So I just remember like just jumping, taking a flight, and just I went boom, like right up in the air, and I was flying, and it was so amazing. I was just like in the clouds, and I could still see everything around me. I could still see my neighborhood. I could see the sun shining so brightly, the clouds, the houses. It was so bright, and it had such a distinct feeling. And I remember feeling so much more like myself. I just remember being, whoa, like this is me. Like I just remember having that unbelievable feeling of like closer to whatever it was that was me. And so that was really like beautiful. And then all of a sudden I realized that I was like up in the air, and I'm like, oh, I should be, well, I'm really, really high. So I just thought maybe I'm gonna fall. So of course, as soon as I started thinking those things and thinking that maybe I was cold and things like that, I came back to my body. But I concentrated again, and again I just came out. And I just had like several astral projections in a row, like one after the other, just concentrating on the mantra and just being okay to come back and not like focus on like, oh no, that's it, I came back. It was just like, whoa, okay, I did it, I can do it again. Let's concentrate more. And I kept really relaxed, and I kept to the mantra, and I just was coming in and out.
At that moment, I had a certain plan of where I was going to try to go to when I did get into the astral, so I sort of jumped up in the air and tried to fly and tried to get there, all in this very kind of panicked way. And I felt myself lifting up, going up toward the ceiling, and actually flying. But somewhere around that point, I think it just got too much for me. The experience was still very new, and eventually I just sort of slipped into a dream. A dream actually of me calling someone on the telephone and telling them about the astral experience that I just had. So it wasn't a long experience, but it was a very useful one for me. It taught me a lot. Just the feeling of being in a different place, the sensation, I guess, of being in the astral, seeing what it was like, how it was different from a dream.
I was at my parents' house, sleeping, and I woke up at my parents' house, and because the doorbell rang. So I went to the door and I answered it, and there were people there, and they wanted something to do with newspapers, and so I went to get my dad. I went and got him. He came down, and then something fell from the roof, and I thought, that's very strange. Something should not have fallen from the roof. So I tested to see if I was in the astral by pulling on my finger, and I was in fact in the astral. So then I jumped up in the air to double test that I was in the astral, and I started floating.
I was asleep, and I found myself becoming conscious in a dream that I was actually dreaming, and that was really strange. Like, I sort of wondered why I was engaged in this bizarre scenario, and found all the dream images just vanish. And I thought, wow, I'm in this dimension that I've heard talked about. What should I do? And I saw a house, and this place was familiar to me from my childhood. And I went inside, and I was filled with this real feeling of joy.
Was sleeping, and my cat woke me up because she wanted me to feed her. So what I did is I got up and I fed her. I put the food in the bowl, and everything was very clear. And I saw the kitchen just as it was. I remember basically getting up, seeing that the cat was asking for food, taking off the cover, walking into the kitchen, scooping out the food, putting it into the dish, and coming back to bed. And then I woke up and realized that I did that in the astral, that I didn't actually feed the cat, but it was so real that I swore that I did, that I went to check to see if I did it. So if you've ever had one like that, or even if you haven't, it just like reminds you how real it can be, and how at any point you should just check to see if you're in the astral plane, even if you have that thought, because it can just seem like so much like everyday life that you really could have been in astral plane, or I could have noticed that I was, and I could have taken advantage of it besides feeding my cat in the astral plane.
I've also been really fortunate to find that we can get amazing spiritual teachings in dreams, and those are dreams that just have a different quality to those other haphazard ones. And really it's really amazing because you're just getting that direct feedback on how you're going, and what you need to do to progress spiritually. And those teachings may be symbolic, they may be much more obvious. Either way, that link and that teaching in dreams is something that has been of tremendous benefit for me, and is really where I base my focus on and where I get my direction from for what I need to work on during the day, and where I need to improve and where I'm traveling well.
So I just let myself drop. I dived down into the water and I plunged down underneath the ocean, right down to the seabed. And I was just floating in the water just near the seabed. And I was looking around, and it was just as you'd think the sea would be, a bit murky. And I never thought about if I could breathe or not at first. I was just breathing normally. And then the thought got into my head, oh, am I supposed to breathe? And then I started looking around going, where's the surface? Because I was quite far down. And even though I'd been breathing fine for a long time, I started panicking, worrying about whether I could breathe. And then I just woke myself up because I got in such a fit. And I just snapped back to my body, all of a sudden, back in my body as soon as I got afraid. And then I woke up and thought that was an amazing experience, and I wrote it down. And that really inspired me to keep trying to get more.
I woke up in a dream and I went up to like a lift door that opens like that, and I pressed the button and I was asking, please let the Great Sphinx be on the other side. And sure enough, I pressed the button, it opened up, and there it was, the desert, Egypt. And I went through and laid my hands on the paws of the Sphinx and felt it there, and it was just amazing. And there's a plaque that sits in front of the Sphinx which has hieroglyphs on it, and I read that, and it was obviously a teaching for me. And yeah, after I read that, I woke up and it was just amazing. That was one of the best experiences I've had.
I quickly went back to my body, but as soon as I closed my eyes and started visualizing the sun, we've seen pictures of the sun, and we, have these ideas about what the sun looks like, and that's what I was using for my visualization. But it was amazing how I just started to bring that picture back, and as soon as I started to do that, this picture just came to life in this way I can't even describe. The sun just became this powerful force. I mean, it just looked more incredible than anything you could ever imagine. And just the sheer power of that kind of experience just landed me right back in my body and just overwhelmed with it.
And so I actually jumped up and I floated up to the ceiling and just kind of hovered up around the ceiling, looking at all the things that I was seeing on the roof. And it was just a really amazing experience, just having weightlessness, and combined with that real feeling of joy and happiness that I was feeling inside. It was just amazing.
But this time, I asked to go to the pyramid, and I went down through the earth, and I just kept this image of the pyramid the whole time. I just was really, really focused on it. And I kept it and I kept it, and I finally got to a pyramid, and I could see all these beautiful things all around. And I was walking around looking at the inside of a pyramid. I never saw the outside. I was actually inside. And I didn't really know what to look for, and I wanted to get a spiritual teaching. So then I started focusing, and I asked to be taken somewhere where I would learn a lesson. And I was taken somewhere else to a completely different place. I flew there very quickly, and I did learn a lesson, and it was something very extremely helpful for me that has helped me not only in my astral practices, but also in my physical, in my daily life and in the physical.
And I just was able to actually verify things later on with other experiences. It wasn't just something part of my imagination. I was able to test it and verify the truth behind it. So it was just quite amazing to me how I found that, you know, there's actually so much more to this world than you know, this physical entity that is my physical body, and that I exist outside. And to me it was extremely important to actually verify it and test it and show it to myself, and after that the knowledge is mine. And I knew no matter how people could actually tell me, oh, I don't believe it, or I haven't tried it, it scares me, or aren't you like scared about this? And it's just like, no, once you understand what it's about, there's nothing scary about it. It's so natural.